And we are live. Hi everyone and welcome. So today Stacey and I are going to try to get a little bit more reading done before the weekend is officially over. I definitely need to read a little bit more. So Stacey, what are you going to read today?
So I am going to read Kings of Ash, which is the second book in the Ash and Sand trilogy. And this is a buddy read with you, Yolene.
Yes.
And Steve talks about books and stuff, and Brandy and some other friends. And the first book was so good, I can't wait to get into this one.
Yeah, I must say, I'm still reading Kings of Paradise. So
you made a good. You
well,
weren't very far a couple days ago.
I'm 250 pages far now. So I feel like I've been reading a lot and that I'm getting out of my slump, but it's only 250 pages. So now I understand what all of you were saying. Like it's only 600 pages, but it feels like it's more.
Yes.
Because there's just so much information and you don't want to skim through. It's so good that you want to read everything. So
yeah, and in the physical copies, there's like no spaces between lines. There's a lot of words on each page.
Yeah, because if a new chapter begins, normally in other books it's like half an open page or nothing, and here it's like just a small 5 and it just starts.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I'm really liking it. So I hope that I'm in time to finish the second one because I think that our discussion is next Saturday or Sunday, one of the two.
It is the 25th. So you've got a couple of weeks because next week
the
is the Stephen King, the Dark Tower
okay.
discussion.
Yeah, okay, then I'll definitely be in time. Okay. So I was going to read that one, but I decided to also start Pira Nessie today.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was my BookTube spin pick of last time, and we had time in, I think, July, August, and September to read it. But of course, I haven't read it until now. So I thought I'll try to finish it in one day. I started this morning, and I'm 170 pages far. So it's 240 pages in total. So I think that I might be able to make it work.
Yeah, you could probably finish that in this sprint.
Ooh. Hi,
hey, Andrew.
It's nice. A couple of people have joined us. Hi, Heather. Ooh, Ship of Magic. You know, Stacey.
Yes. What I wouldn't give to go back and read that again without knowing anything.
Yeah, definitely.
I haven't started Fool's Errand yet.
But you finished the entire first trilogy and then you read the Live Ship Traders trilogy before that, right?
I read the first two in the Live Ship Trader trilogy. Then I went back and read Farseer, and then I finished Live Ship Trader. So I'm ready to move on to the Tawny Man. I just haven't started it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's amazing because it really merges the two previous trilogies, and I like that quite a bit.
Oh, really? Oh, that would be neat. I didn't know if you were going to get those characters from Live Ship Traders again in the story. So
I'm going to, but oh, hi. Oh, yes. It's always nice to have something when you're working. Hi, Ashley.
Hey, Ashley.
So Andrew is reading Dragonfly Falling.
I don't know what that is.
No, it's probably something older. I'm thinking D&D, but I'm not really sure. Hi, Sarah. Nice that you're joining us. Kristen.
Hey, Kristen.
Yeah, no spoilers.
It's so hard. They're such good books. I hope you like it, Heather.
It's really difficult. Okay.
Oh, okay. It's funny, Andrew, my husband and I were talking about Children of Time yesterday because I don't even remember how he got on the subject, but he was like, hey, what was the name of that book with the like intelligent spiders? And so I told him, and he's like, is that on the Kindle? I'm going to read it just out of nowhere. And I was like, okay. Oh, we were talking about bees and how smart bees are. And so so I'm really excited for him to read that. And I have to read Children of Ruin because that's the sequel. I haven't read it yet. But I really like Adrian. He's a great author. And I think that is if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but that is one of his fantasy trilogies. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure either, but I think that I have a trilogy of his. The Tiger and the Wolf is the first one, and it's about it's more in the um, it's like with different tribes and they can shapeshift. But I
Ooh.
tried the audiobook and it's the narrator just it didn't really fit for me, so I stopped. But I'm going to try to pick it up physically because it sounds really interesting. You don't really read a lot about shapeshifters that much, besides Twilight is the only one that I can think of. So it's nice. Hi, what are you reading? Hope to finish your book. Okay, so you're probably far in. If it bleeds.
Oh, good. Which story are you on, Ashley? And are you liking it? I'm curious. So I read that in December, and I thought I had rated it a lot higher when I went back and looked, because for short story collections, I usually put my stars for each story in the table of contents because it's hard to do that in Goodreads. You have to give the whole book a rating. And I had thought that I had some higher ratings in there. And I went and looked. I was like, wow, I didn't rate this very high. So I'm like, I need to go back and read it because I have fond memories of it. I remember things. So I think I may have. It was my first ever short story collection by Stephen King. I hadn't read any of his other short stories. So I think I didn't rate him as high because I'm not really a big short story person. But
When do we meet the hubby?
I am trying to get him to join me for the Sword of Kaigen live show. He is actually reading that right now. So if we're lucky, maybe we'll see him then. He's camera shy. He doesn't want to be on camera. So
I have the same issue, so I completely understand.
We'll see.
Ah, yes, Echoes of the Fall. I knew it was something like that. So that's a trilogy, and it's already finished. But the one that Andrew is talking about, The Shadows of the Apt, the covers are really beautiful. So I just want to read them because of that. But on the other hand, 10 books.
I think those are the ones that he showed on. He had a book haul, and he had bought like the first 8 of them, and they all have bugs on the spines. They're really pretty.
Yeah, it's so pretty if you line it up. Okay, so If It Bleeds, that's probably the first one of the short stories.
That is the third short story. And that's the one that has the characters from the Bill Hodges trilogy, the Mr. Mercedes books. That one was my favorite of the 4 stories are in there.
I really need to pick up a King book. It's just like Jane Austen. I have never read King. And yeah.
Well, you read Gunslinger, and that wasn't exactly a great place to start with it.
It wasn't the best introduction, and that's why I'm keeping it off. But at the same time, he has written so many books. At least one of them needs to appeal to me.
Yeah.
The Night Circus. I haven't read that one yet, but I hear that it's very whimsical, so I want to give it a try. I think that I might like it quite a bit.
I DNF'd it. I just couldn't. The writing is really beautiful, but I didn't find the story interesting enough, and it was just really hard for me to get motivated to read. And I don't know if that's where you are, Kaylani, but at some point I just said it's just not for me. There's just some books that aren't for everybody, but I will say I could recognize that the writing was very beautiful. And so if you enjoy the story, her writing is very, I guess people call it purple prose. And so sometimes it would take a really long time for her to get a point across, but you could really, it does feel like a literary book instead of a fantasy.
Yeah.
I felt the same way with Strange the Dreamer. I don't know if you read that one.
Haven't read that one either, but I've often seen the two being compared, and like if you like one, you will like the other. So I can definitely see where you're coming from. I think you should DNF books if you don't like it. I have been in so many reading slumps because I try to push through a book, and if you don't like it, you can always come back later, but there's no harm in putting it aside. So I'm learning that right now.
It's funny you say that. I have Bear and the Nightingale on my shelf. I've had it for a couple of years. I DNF'd it when I first read it, but you have given me like this. You've been talking about it so much on your channel. I'm like, I've got to try it again. So yes, I didn't think I honestly had it on my unhaul shelf. I was like, I'm getting rid of this, I'm not going to read it, but I pulled it back and put it back on my TBR shelf, so I'm going to try it.
You should. It's so good. But at the other hand, if you don't like it this time around, maybe it's really time to DNF it for real now. But yeah, give it another
I'm
try.
going to
I
read it
liked
in
it so much.
December when it's cold outside and you can
Yes.
kind of get the atmosphere for it.
Yeah, it's such an atmospherical read that I think that will definitely help. Bag of Bones by King. Well, also first time reading him.
I have not read. That's one of his books I have not read. I wonder if that's a good place for you to start with him, Heather. You have to let us know if you like it and if it's a good place for people to start reading him. I always hear different opinions from different people. Like some people say, hey, you should start chronologically and read his older books. I think it depends on the type of reader you are. If you are a horror reader, you really like dark horror, then yes, start with his older stuff because they're more typical horror. But if you're more of a fantasy reader, then I would start with his you can't start with Dark Tower because that'll just ruin you. But there are some of his horror stuff that just has more of a fantasy element, even though it, like, I would say The Stand, but that's a really long one. So it just depends on the type of reader that you are.
Mm-hmm.
I started with it when I was 13. So
okay, yeah.
And then I read
afterwards.
I read Pet Sematary right after that, and I swore off Stephen King. I was never going to read his books again because that book scared me so bad. Mm-hmm. And then I came back to him again as an adult, but I started reading his newer stuff, his more like suspense thriller books, and I fell in love with him again. And so now I'm just trying to make my way through everything. But I read it again as an adult, and it was a completely different experience than when I read it as a 13-year-old.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It's kind of cool. I don't know if you've read it or you know the story, but the story, it takes place in two different timelines with the kids as they're kids and then when they're adults. And so when you read it as a kid, you feel more connected with the kids in the story. And as an adult, you feel more connected with adults. So I really think it's a very cool way that Stephen King does a really good job of writing kids. I don't care. You guys want to talk about how he doesn't write good perspective for kids, and I disagree. Hi, Brandy.
Yeah, but sometimes it's difficult to read it as an adult, and sometimes kids are annoying to read about, but that's kids, and that's because you just know a lot more as an adult. But that doesn't mean that it's badly written per se. Mm-hmm. I have the same feeling with Fitz. When he's a child, a lot of people say that it's not well written or that they get annoyed with him, but that's the whole point, that he's still a child and he makes stupid mistakes. Yeah, and that's why you fall in love with him, because you really see him as a real person. I really had trouble I gave the first book, Assassin's Apprentice, 3 stars because I was really annoyed with it. Yeah. You can see that. I'm loving it so far, but I'm not feeling it reading this weekend. Sometimes you just have those days or months. Yeah. Worst case scenario. Somebody started with the Talisman, then went to Dark Tower from there. So I have not read the Talisman, but I heard that one's more of a fantasy. And I wonder if it's connected at all to Dark Tower. That might be a good choice for me then, if it's fantasy-esque. My husband being an idiot. Hi. Hello, Kelly. Hi, Kelly. Oh, it's fun that so many people are joining us. Yes. Everybody's having a hard time getting some reading in this weekend. A lot of people have read King. I feel embarrassed. The Institute. I really liked The Institute. That might be a good one for you to start with. Okay. Because it's King light, but it's a very good story, and the character work in that book is excellent. And I know that you're a character-driven reader, so I think you'd really like it. Yeah, I just made a small note here so that I don't forget. Okay. Not going to get any reading, but we're going to have a nice long TBR when we're done. Yeah. It's not really the point here, but it's fine. Cell.
Oh, Ashley. I liked The Cell, but it was everybody I talked to said that was like one of the worst books he's ever written. I think second only to what is it, the Dreamcatcher? But I like both of them. They're just not his typical kind of. They're very corny
Mm.
horror. I don't know how else to say it. There's a lot of like weird stuff that goes on. And I guess that could be typical King, but I thought it was fun.
Okay, so The Green Mile I do know just because it's a movie. And I
Have
like
you
the
seen
movie
the
quite a
movie?
bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like around Christmas time, that's when it's always on TV. So I've seen it quite a couple of times now.
Different seasons. I think it's the one that has Shawshank Redemption, The Body, which was also made into a movie, and I think there's one other book in there that was also made into a movie or shorts. It's 4 short stories in that one, and I think 3 out of the 4 in there were all made into movies. So I have that. I think I have that one. It must be good that
Yeah,
you can take
if it's all made
3
into
or 4.
movies.
Yeah.
Shawshank Redemption is a masterpiece of a movie. So
Yes.
Shining. Well,
Yes.
I've seen the movie again and I liked it, but everybody who read the book seems to dislike the movie. So maybe I should read the book and then let the movie be ruined for me.
So Brandy, Ashley, and Steve and I are reading The Shining for the 24-hour readathon in October. So we will not be reading a romance at one
No,
time.
a little bit
So
different.
if you feel like starting there, it's a ghost story. If you like haunting ghost stories, it's so much more than that. I'm oversimplifying.
That's a
That
good
is
one
a
as
good
well,
one.
right? Isn't that
Yes,
like
Kelly, that is a great one. It's long, but it reads quickly.
I don't even recognize most of these titles. It's
I
really
haven't
bad.
read that one. I'm
That's
assuming that's King.
I think so as well. Like the more popular ones I recognize, but everything else, that man has written a lot.
He's written like 50. At Pupil, that's the one. That's also in different seasons.
Well, I have a lot of books to pick from. That's for sure.
He had a lot of fans, Stephen King fans joining us today.
Okay, yeah. So Elevation is a King book. Show. I don't know which show. My favorite is 11/22/63, so probably the show for that one. Didn't even know it had a show.
Um, I don't think
Maybe
I've
that's.
seen that show, so I don't know. I can't remember who Harry is. Harry the main character?
But if it made you cry in the first 5 minutes, it can be bad. I like it. If you're that connected to the story, yeah, good sign. Ooh, some of the creepiest.
It is. It's about a boy who meets an ex-Nazi, and I can't remember the whole story, but I saw the movie, and it was very creepy.
Oh, okay. I might have to look some things up before I make my pick because there's so much and it's so different. You have some more gory horror in King, I think, but then you also have like spirits and ghosts and
Mhm. Psychological.
very disturbing. Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, that's a series.
Oh, okay.
Aha, somebody. Hi, Hans.
Oh, such a beautiful book, Hans.
It's another one that I haven't read yet, but I got it for my birthday, so I have a copy. I need to read some more classics because I didn't go to school in an English speaking country. We don't really read English classics. So I need to read a lot. I think that I read maybe The Lord of the Flies is the only one that I've read.
I haven't even read that. I own it.
I
I haven't
like
read
that
it.
one. The Hellbound Heart.
I've never read a Clive Barker, but I heard they're pretty
Me neither.
dark. His stories are dark.
Okay, so Stacey, are you ready to read a little
I'm
bit?
ready. I've got my book. I'm ready.
Okay, so how long?
20?
Yeah, that's good. I have your countdown timer, so
Yay!
share screen. Okay. Happy reading.
I read 8 whole pages.
Ooh, that's good. For Kings of Ash,
Hmm.
that's good. I'm so slow when I'm reading that book. Well, Kings of
Yes.
Paradise. So, how did everyone else do? I ended up reading, I don't really know where I started, but I think 20-ish pages.
Oh, that's
But
good.
it's really a very easy book to read. I feel it really flies by. So it's great when you're in a slump and you want something quick and easy. Ah, thanks. Dishes and laundry. It needs to happen.
Yeah. Well, I hope you feel better though.
Yeah, it's annoying. 13. Ooh, that's
Wow,
good.
good job. So far, it's good, but I can't say more than that because it would spoil the first book because it really jumps into where the first book left off. And but yeah, it's good. But I'm so now I'm on page 11, so I'm not very far in.
But it's good if it already starts good. It can only go
Yeah.
better. Well, talking to
Uh,
your mom and Nana is fun as well. So it's being productive. These are productivity sprints. So we'll count it. I completely understand, Hans.
yes. I think that's why we're all here.
Yeah,
So all of our brains are fried.
it's true.
Honestly, what would you be doing if you weren't at the sprint right now? I would probably be watching YouTube videos,
Yeah,
not
same.
reading.
It's funny how I spend more time on BookTube and watching other people talk about books than actually reading myself.
I know.
But
I
it's
know.
part of the fun.
Yes.
10 pages. It's good.
Xanadu, huh?
20 pages. Is The Winter King by Bernard somebody? I don't know how he's called, but he writes a lot of historical fiction as well. I think this is an Arthurian legend, something, unless I'm completely mistaken.
The first book, I'm assuming you're talking about Kings of Paradise. I gave it 5 stars. It was so good. It was so
Yeah,
good.
I'm really liking it so far as well. And normally I have a hard time with multiple POV stories, but they get introduced so well that you
Mhm.
almost don't realize it.
Would you say that it's gory?
Um, I think that the first scene that you have in Kings of Paradise is very dark, and I think
Mhm.
it's literally the first page, so it's not really a spoiler, I suppose. But you have one of the characters who is eating and cooking a child, and I think that that would put a lot of people off. But everything else isn't that dark. So on the one hand, I'm like, okay, it's a good choice to let the reader know this is the type of book that it's going to be. But on the other hand, I think if you can get through that scene, it's not that dark, everything else. It's more like hardship and feeling for the characters because they have such a difficult life and understanding why some of them aren't good people. But it's not really over gory or anything like that. I didn't really have a problem with it. I don't know if you agree with that, but
I didn't think it was overly gory, but I think that he really sets the tone with that first page.
yeah.
So if you're expecting it to be a Robin Hobb type, feeling for the characters and no, it's
It's a
much
different
darker.
level. Yeah. Yeah, it's really that first scene paints like the entire picture of how you view everything else. I
Mhm.
had the same with Fletcher's books. Even when he
Yeah.
described something to be colorful, everything was bleak and brown and
Yes.
everything was sepia in my head. So it really sets a tone. 15 pages. It's good. Enjoy your nap, Ashley.
She said she'd be napping if she's answering what I said, what would you be doing if you weren't here? She'd be taking a nap.
Ah, okay. Yeah. Hans would also
Yeah.
be watching YouTube videos. Ah, okay, yeah. I had the correct author.
I have
Our
not read anything by him, but all of the
Me
covers
neither.
of his books look so interesting.
Yeah, and I think that this is the Arthurian legend retelling. So it's something that I want to read more of because the story really interests me, but I haven't really read a lot of them, even maybe not even one. I need to think about that. It does. Yeah. You can if somebody else is so excited for a book, you want to read
Hmm.
it as well and just join the fun. But it's also difficult when you have a humongous TBR and you need to pick one.
Yeah, so sometimes if I'm not necessarily if I'm in a slump, but if I'm reading something and I need motivation to keep reading it, like I'm at that point where I'm putting it down too much, I'll go and watch reviews, which would get me a little pumped to read the book. So I'll go and watch reviews for the book. I haven't need to do that with Ash and Sand, but
No, me neither. I haven't.
I
Not
haven't, but
yet.
I do own it.
Ooh, okay, that's a first step.
That's the first step.
I do want to give it a try though, because I did a video a while ago about why I DNF'd Wheel of Time, and I asked there if I would like Malazan,
Hmm.
and well, the reactions were mixed, but it got me interested enough that I feel like I should give it a try, and even if I don't like it, then at least I know. Because
Hmm.
now I keep wondering, it might be something that I really enjoy. And I just want to talk about it as well and see what everybody is talking about and what the hype is about.
Yeah, the only thing I've heard bad about it is the author kind of drops you in the middle of the world with no information, which I like. And unless the writing is so bad and you're confused because the writing's bad, um, then obviously not in that case. But I like to learn about the world along with the characters. And I think Richard Nell does a really good job of that in Kings of Paradise. As you're
Mhm.
kind of experiencing the world from the viewpoint of the characters instead of just being told about what's going on. And it gives you a whole nother idea. And also, when you have multiple perspectives, you see the world in different ways from the different perspectives. And so it's nice. That's why I loved the Live Ship Trader trilogy more than I did the um, Farseer. Because in Farseer, you only get the perspective of Fitz.
Mhm.
But in Live Ship Trader trilogy, you get the perspective of multiple people who are in different circumstances. And I liked that. But it's very hard to keep track of everything too.
Yes. Yeah, especially because you stay with a character for a long period of time, and then when you
Mhm.
switch, I always need to think like, okay, where were they and what was happening here?
Yeah, so true.
Cleaning. Well, then reading is the better option.
Yeah,
I still need to clean as well.
we are bad influences.
Yeah, definitely because Hans's TBR is growing. But they are all good titles, so I mean, oh, you as well. Maybe it's I don't know, but I think that Andrew is doing a read along of the series.
Oh, is he?
I think that it, or maybe he is joining another booktuber, but I think that there's a read along going on because I see a lot of people reading that series right now. How are you liking it? It's a 10 book series, so I need some people telling me that they like it before I pick it up. Hi, glad
Hi.
that you can join us. Glad that you could join us, Sarah. And yeah, I don't have kids yet, but I can definitely see that it's not always easy to stay at the computer. Ah, oh. Well, not everybody likes that video. Let me put it that way, the why I DNF'd Wheel of Time. Most people are really polite about it, so I'm glad with that. I have the one or two people who tell me that I'm stupid. I should just shut up. But most people, even the ones who like the series, say like, okay, I can understand your problems with it, but I still like it enough, and it's one of the best series ever. So I would still say watch it if you want to, but also watch some of the positive reviews because so many people love Wheel of Time that you can't really watch one negative review and decide like, oh, it's not for me. I would definitely
How,
give it a chance.
how far did you get before you DNF the series?
I read the first four books,
Oh, that's
but
a pretty good amount.
yeah, it's far enough. But the thing is, it's 15 books, and for me, it needs to be better than just a trilogy. If a trilogy is fine, I'll continue reading it and just finish up the story. But after 4 books, it takes so much time. They are so big that it almost took me a month just to finish them. And then the amount of characters kept being more and more, and it was a very difficult time to remember them, or I had to read almost them back to back and then have no time to read anything else. And that I just didn't want that commitment. Also, the slog was coming, and a lot of people said the first 4 books are the best. And I was already being very annoyed with most of them. So I thought, yeah, well, I'm still contemplating maybe reading the summary of the first like 12 books and then picking up again when Brandon Sanderson is writing the ending, because a lot of people say that that's really good.
If you do that, I'd be curious to see how that goes. You should do a video on it. You might get a lot of hate for that, though.
Yeah, probably.
I didn't even make it through the second book.
Oh, yeah. Well, the second book has one of the best endings. And I think that's why I kept reading them, because the endings are very good. And then it's like, oh, I want to read the next one. But then the first 3/4 of the book, yeah. So in my opinion, you're not really missing out, especially if you tried the first 2 books and you're not liking it.
Yeah, it took me 3 times to read the first book. And when I finally finished it, I was like, okay, that was good. I'll try the second. A lot of people said the second book was their favorite. And I got maybe 30% into the second book, and I was like, I'm still not enjoying this. It's just not for me. Mm-hmm. And the thing is the friends of mine that told me to read it are friends who had gotten me to read Lord of the Rings. And I loved Lord of the Rings. And they're like, oh, if you love that, you're going to love these books. But it was too similar at first.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't get into it.
Yeah. And that's what, yeah, well, the same, maybe one day, but at the other hand, there are so many good books that I am still excited for that I don't really see myself picking it up ever again, but maybe after the show, because I am quite excited for the TV show.
Yeah.
So if that's good and I want to see what happens next, then I have to pick up the books. So who knows? Malazan.
Okay.
I've heard that the first book is very difficult to get into, but if it makes you think of Kings of Paradise,
I know, right?
Okay. That makes me excited. And I think that Steve also has a copy of that book.
I smell a buddy read.
Yeah. I'm the same. I never really get offended when somebody dislikes a book that I like, as long as it's done respectfully. But some people, I think, feel very connected to a world, especially if they read it when they were growing up, that it almost feels like you're attacking their personality. So I can see where it's coming from. It's never nice when somebody breaks down a book that you like. But I like to hear different people's opinions.
I wonder how I'd feel if somebody said something bad about Pride and Prejudice. I don't know if I'd get insulted, but I'd feel obligated to set them straight.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a lot of those as well, like very polite comments, but like, this is why you're wrong. But I like reading that as well, because it's interesting to see how different people feel about different books. So I liked that, to have the insight of, okay, this is why people like it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
It depends on who's recommending the book to me. If it's somebody that I know and I trust that it has the same taste as me, then I'll pick it up even if it has a bad review. I don't really care that much. And there are a couple of booktubers that I know, even if they dislike it, I put it on my TBR because I know that our tastes don't align.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's more important that way, that you just have people who you know what their taste is and then take their recommendations instead of just look at general reviews.
I've read some pretty great books that booktubers that I follow did not like. Mm-hmm. And so I still follow them. Not everything that they read do I not like, but it's just you're not going to find somebody that's exactly the same as you. And mm-hmm. sometimes if a booktuber does it right, when they give negative reviews, they'll tell you about the things they don't like. And sometimes those will be things that you do, like a trope, for example. So some people really hate a certain trope. And if they say, I couldn't stand this book because of this trope, and that's one you love, then, so I think that it's really up to the booktuber to make sure, if they're gonna, even if you're going to give a negative review, that you explain why. You don't just say, oh, it sucked.
Yeah.
Because that's not a good review.
Yeah, and that's sometimes difficult to do because in the beginning, and I still struggle with that, but you often want to say how you feel, but you need to give it enough information that people understand why you feel that way. When you say like, oh, I didn't like the characters, okay, but why? That's something that I'm still learning, and you need to watch some other booktubers who do that quite well, and then okay, that's how it's done.
I actually find it harder to give a good review than a bad one.
Yeah, same.
And I think it's because when you dislike a book, the things that you disliked are more visceral and in your forefront of your mind. Whereas sometimes you read a good book, it's just like, it could do no wrong. There was nothing wrong with it. I loved it, every second of it. But it's still going to have its errors. And so you can't say that everything about the book was great and not explain it. The same way you can't say the book sucked and not explain it. So I actually think good reviews of a book that you loved, like Sword of Kangen was a really hard review to do because I wanted to make sure I said, I gave it 5 stars. I thought it was perfect, but it did have some issues that I think some people might find, irritating, or some things. I think that's why it's the only review I've done, because it's so hard. I just script that out. I think of everything.
It's difficult. Yeah, I'm the same, because I keep saying like, oh yeah, I will put a review out for this one, but then I start writing it down, because that's one of the things that I do script, because otherwise I just start rambling and it takes so much time, and then most of the time those are the videos that people don't really watch. So it's like, do I put that much time in something that people don't really enjoy? It's difficult. But sometimes if I'm really like passionate about a book or a series, I just want to put it out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's also difficult because sometimes it's good, and you don't even notice it while reading. While if you're annoyed, you notice the specific things that annoy you. So it's sometimes just difficult to put in words.
When I was reading the second book, Fletcher's second book, what was it, Mirror's Truth?
Yeah.
I actually got to the point where I was counting. I went and looked on the Kindle. I had the Kindle edition. I went and looked to see how many times the word rut showed up in that book, because he must have used rut. I think it ended up being like 200 times in that book. I may be over exaggerating, but once I saw it, I couldn't help but look for it, if that makes sense. And that didn't that was an irritation, but it didn't really affect my rating. But it's those kinds of things. It's like, as soon as you see it and it
you
bothers
can never unsee.
You're not going to be able to unsee it.
Yeah, that's really true. And sometimes that's annoying, because you could have liked the book, but once you see that, you start looking for it.
Yeah.
And yeah. So I don't know if you've read Bloodsong, right? By Anthony
No,
Ryan?
I haven't.
Ooh, not yet. Okay, that's another one that I think is very good, and especially the second one, because most people say that the second one isn't as good. I like the second one almost more than
I think a lot of people had issue with the second one because it changed point of views.
Yeah.
And I haven't watched Steve's interview with Anthony Ryan. I wanted to see if the reason why he changed point of views is because the publishing company bought the rights to the books. Well, I don't know if they bought the rights, but they were now he was going to be traditionally published. So Bloodsong originally came out self-published, and I was wondering if the reason they did that, or reason he did it, was because they requested it, because that seems to be one of the biggest issues people seem to have with the second book.
Yeah, well, I've seen the interview, but I don't remember him saying that. I think that he just wanted to try something different, but it's been a while, so I don't really know for sure. But I thought that he did that very well. But I also think that it's a pretty bold move, especially if you're not expecting it. I was expecting it, because a lot of people said I didn't like it, I DNF'd it. So my expectations were pretty low, and I think that helps. Sometimes it helps and sometimes it doesn't, because you already have your mind set and it's not going to change. But this time it helped. I knew what I was getting into, and in the end, Valen wasn't my favorite POV. So I think if you can make that work, yeah, that's a good sign.
I mean, can you imagine if they changed all the Fitz books to the third person? I think I'd be upset.
It wouldn't be the same. Yeah, it would be very difficult. Yeah, it's, Hop is just
Yeah.
magic. It's too good.
Yeah, I
How
wanted to
far?
do a review of the first two trilogies, and I was just like, I don't even know how to explain it. Because, like I said, I gave the first book 3 stars. And so, can you explain to me why the second book of Farseer and the third book, and then all the books after were 5 stars? Like, I just fell in love with Fitz. Like, he
Yeah,
was an annoying little kid in the first one. And I was really mad at Robin Hobb. Honestly, the 3 stars were not because Fitz, it was because of Robin Hobb making my heart break over and over again in that book. I was mad at her.
yeah,
But how amazing is an author that can do that?
hmm yeah. That's she can literally let me watch Fitch doing like super boring stuff, but I'm still interested because I want to know more about Fitz's life. And
Yes.
that's something that actually happens in the next trilogy. It's just like the beginning is very boring, but if you're a Robin Hobb lover, you don't mind.
You know, well, yeah, because you haven't, I mean, for me, it's been, just a few months since I've left Fitz. But for some people who have read her books from the beginning, it's been years since they've seen Fitz. So you're like, I don't care if he's just
Yeah.
washing his hair.
It's true. Too many ands and buts. Yeah. It's sometimes once you notice it, you can't unnotice it anymore. And then I start wondering, hasn't the editor seen it? Or maybe it's just something that a lot of people do like. Maybe I'm just the odd one out, but
Mm,
it can be very annoying.
yeah.
I haven't read yet, but then true. Yeah. Yeah, sometimes I have like a planning in my head what I'm going to read by the end of the year. It's not going to work. But on the other hand, that's maybe a good thing. So I still have things to be excited for in 2022. But amazing things keep getting out. And I still need to read books from 10, 20 years ago. So I have a problem.
Right.
Yeah.
I was just talking about doing a video. See, I have all these videos planned and I don't do any of
Same.
them. But I was talking about doing a video about classic fantasy and sci-fi and reaching out to the community about which ones they recommend. So I have a local used bookstore and they have a huge selection of fantasy and sci-fi, but it's all like, pre 21st century. And I don't recognize any of them. I haven't read, I started reading fantasy and sci-fi maybe 15 years ago. So I wanted to do a video where I kind of go through the bookstore and show all the stuff they have and then ask people to tell me what I should read. Because there's so much before now, new releases, stuff that we have available, that's on BookTube. A lot of BookTube stuff is all new stuff. So it's like, there's probably some gems in there that I wouldn't even know about.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And that's like the cult of the new on BookTube. And it's good because a lot of people are reading the same thing and you're excited for it. But on the other hand, there are so many older books, maybe series that are already completed, that's like they need to get some more attention as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to read a little bit more or
You would do one more?
yeah, that's good.
Everybody up for that?
Yeah, I hope that people want to read more. Okay, yes. Good.
I found my page. All right, I am ready.
Okay, so another 20 minutes. I hope that the camera is going to survive because I don't have a webcam. So if I am out, I still have the mic. I can still talk, but you won't see me.
Okay. Hopefully it'll last 20 more minutes.
Yeah. Okay. Happy reading. Okay.
I read more that time, but I switched back to Emma.
Ah, something different.
Yeah, so I read 13 pages.
It's a really pretty edition.
I love this edition. Isn't it gorgeous?
It's so nice.
This is the Penguin Classics Deluxe edition. I have the same edition for Persuasion, and I don't have the same edition for Pride and Prejudice. Can't remember what the other one is I have this edition for, but
Yeah, they're all
I
cool.
have way too many copies of Pride and Prejudice.
It's one of your favorite books, or
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I
Then
think I
it's
have.
allowed.
My other favorite book is The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón, and I have 4 copies of that.
I have one copy of that one. It's the Dutch translation. So you've mentioned it a couple of times now, and I really need to pick it up. But I don't know if I want to read the translation, but I think it's originally in Spanish or
Spanish, yeah.
So it's a
even then-
translation either way. So
Yeah.
Ooh, 8. Well, 8 is more than none, and especially if your kids were screaming for food, I'd say 8 is a good job. 21 pages. It's also good. The Last Book of the White. I haven't heard of that one before. I am. Well, I'm from Belgium, the Flemish part of Belgium. You're from the Netherlands, Hans? Well, like I said, everything above 0 is more than enough.
Right.
It's just about reading, not about how much.
I will say that even after this, I have the motivation now to keep going.
Yeah, once you're in the mood and in the zone,
Yeah.
It's starting that's difficult. And if you only have 14 pages left, I'm guessing you will finish today.
Yeah, reading Rainbow, you got to get it done.
Are you liking the book? Because I think that he's reading the Shadows of the Apt book too, right?
Mhm.
So, ooh, Limburg. I am also from Limburg. Small world. So, how late is it now where you are, Stacey?
It is 2:30.
Okay, so you're probably still going to read a little bit.
Yes, I'm going to finish Emma. I only have 35 pages left.
Okay, yeah, so that's
I'm going to
doable.
finish that, and then I'm going to jump back into Kings of Ash, try to get some headway there. So, which I don't think will be hard. Now that I've gotten, past 10 pages, it's already, I mean, it started out well, but once you get a little more pages, you start to get the characters are back, and
Yeah. Mhm.
so I wish I could say more.
Yeah, well, I'm really excited to see what's going to happen in this one because it's difficult to predict. It's going a completely different way than I thought it was going to be. So I'm loving it, but I don't know what's going to happen. I have 0 predictions.
When you finish it, you got to go watch the discussion that we did because that was a lot of fun. I had some good conversations there. And poor Steve and Randy are like, I can't say what's happening.
Yeah, it's not easy. But I'm glad that we still have time until the 25th, I thought you said, or 24th, because I thought it was next week. But then I'll definitely finish it.
Are you doing is it Iconoclast?
I'm not. I couldn't really find the physical copies, and it has the ebooks, but I normally don't really read that much on a device. So maybe if I have more time. For now, I have like 4 books that I need to read for buddy reads and stuff like that, and that's already. I'm going to prioritize those because the Sword of Gaiden I still need to read.
Well, luckily you have until the 3rd of October for that
Yeah.
one. So I'm looking at. So you didn't do Rivers of Thieves, so that one's on Sunday as well. No, that's on Saturday. So yeah, you're good because you're not doing the Dark Towers either, right?
No, and If It Bleeds is also one that I'm not reading, so I still have until the 25th, yeah. It's just I need to make sure that I'm reading everything else because then the week after that it's sort of Kaigen, but it's also The Faithful and the Fallen read. on the
Oh
conclusion of
yeah.
that one. It's in the
Finally,
same
you'll be done
weekend.
with that.
Yeah. I'm going to be so happy when I finally finish that series.
I'm kind of glad that I dropped out.
Yeah,
Sad.
that you dropped out when you did. Yeah. I was still so hopeful after the first one, but I must say I actually liked the first one. It was traditional fantasy, but I'm here for it. I kind of like that in between your grimdark and unpredictable parts. I like it
Mhm.
when you have a fantasy that you just know, okay, fantasy straight up, nothing too
Sure.
unpredictable. But then all the fight scenes, that's what got me.
It's just too
It's just too
much.
much. Yeah. And I thought that I would have liked it better if there was more time in between. And that's true, but I think that I've let it come too far. And at this point, I'm just not going to be excited anymore. But
Yeah.
I'm still hopeful for the last one. You never know if it ties in well.
I didn't watch the last, I guess, Ruin. I didn't watch the live stream for that one. But I suspected you didn't care for it because the next video I watched of you, you said that you had unhauled the whole
Yeah,
hardback copy. So I was like, oh,
I
that's
did.
a
Yeah.
bad sign.
Like the first two books I quite enjoyed. And then
Mhm.
people said like, okay, the third one is the best one. And I can see if you pick it up for the fight scenes, that it is. But for me, it was just overload of something that I didn't like in the first two ones. So, and
Um,
then a lot of people are saying, do you really dislike it that much that you're selling your copies? But I mean, they were first editions and signed. And for a book that I'm like, or a series that I'm like, okay, it's just fine. I don't need to have those. If I just had the paperbacks, I would have kept them. But now somebody um, bought them from me, a fellow Belgian, and he was quite excited because he read, I think, the new one, Shadow of the Gods
mhm.
by John Gwynne, and he was sold. So he was really glad that he could finally buy books like that because normally it's all in the US and then shipping is crazy. So I
Yeah,
was glad that he was glad with it and I had some money to buy new books. So
that
win-win situation.
perfect situation. Yeah.
It is. Okay, so the series is great so far. Huge world building and great character arcs. That does sound very well. The prose is a bit disjointed, but I hear it gets better. Okay. I That's something that I didn't like about John Gwynne either. I didn't really like his prose. I think that it could have been better if it was a little bit better edited maybe. But if the world building and the character arcs are great, I need to wait until the new year, until I finish some more series, but then I might give this one a try.
It's hard to think about getting into a 8 or 10. Is it 10
Then
books?
then.
Yeah. It's like, I think I have the first one though.
Oh,
I
good.
think I got it on sale on Kindle. I can't remember. I have to go back and look. Or it might be on Kindle Unlimited. Maybe I downloaded it. But um, it's either that or the one you were talking about, the other series. I
The
can't
Tiger
remember.
and the Wolf, Echoes of
Yeah.
the Fall.
I have to go back and look and find out which one I have. Because I think somebody was talking up the one of the series. So
Mhm. Yeah, let me know which one it is. If it's also the Echoes of the Fall one, buddy read.
well, it was awesome how many people showed up today.
Yeah, I'm really surprised. I mean, it's just for reading, so even if it's just a handful of people, it's fine. But it's always nice when you have some interaction and other people are reading as well. Makes me glad, especially because I love reading sprints.
Yes. I love reading sprints too.
Mhm.
And I haven't been doing them lately because I've been so busy.
It's sometimes the timing is just isn't perfect. But if you do one on your channel on Friday evening, let me know,
I
and I'll make
will.
room in my schedule.
Awesome. All right.
Oh, thank you, Hans.
Oh, I did see he subbed my channel. Thank you so much.
It's always nice. So, and nice meeting you too. So I'm going to go to sleep because it's 10,
Yes.
no, it's 9:30 here. It's still fine, but I have trouble getting out of bed in the morning lately. So
Yes, we're getting close here to starting to get things ready for dinner. So thank you so much for asking me to join you today.
thanks for joining. I had a great time. And thanks everybody in the chat for joining. Thank you, Kelly. So bye everyone. Thanks for joining and
Thanks,
for
Kelly.
making us read a little bit.